Hello, I just received my copy of the W0T 2025. This is a new game by the Polish company Taktykaistrategia about the new fifth branch of the Polish army known as W0T, which means Wojska Obrony Terytorialnej, in English Territorial Defense Force. This is the newest fifth branch of the Polish army. Its descriptions you can see here. The Territorial Defense Force is the fifth military branch of the Polish armed forces dedicated to conducting defense activities in cooperating with the operational forces and to stabilize the military situation throughout the country. WOT was created about 4 years ago. It went through some changes throughout this time. It caused some controversies because the way it is about to be used, because some people think it's gonna be, well, some kind of light infantry. The others see it as some, well, voluntary service that is somehow closer to the, well, police. So there were many discussions about it, and this game is, well, some kind of propositions how the WOT forces should be used. On the cover we have a soldier of the WOT and their symbol, a symbol which is somehow related to the symbol of the Polish resistance forces during the World War II. I have to say that a year ago I received my copy of the Next War Poland, and these games are somehow related, not when it comes to the anything but the subject. They are both about a potential conflict between Poland and Russia, while Next War Poland is about, well, strategic scale, because we have brigades, regiments running on the entire board of the northern Poland and the Baltic basin. We have a politic there include as well, while W0T is a tactical scale game where you are using companies, sections, platoons and so on. And the battles there pictured in this game are rather smaller. So let's take a look inside. This game has an unusual way of box because it is magnetic box, like you can see. It looks more like a chest than the box. So inside we have 2 D6 die, because this system works on the D6 die. Oh, I should maybe say that this is a game of the Battles of the 21st Century system. So far 1 boxed game was released, this one a 2nd boxed game, but there were some modules released in the magazine released by this published by this company, Tactics and Strategy. And here we have a module for Ossetia 2008-2015, and here we have Mariupol 2014-2015. So here we have a scenario book. Here there are some new rules for the system, and here we have scenarios. I have a Polish edition of this game, of course, but you can order English edition as well if you like. You have to tell publisher about what version you want while ordering your game. And here we have a first scenario. As you can see, there's not much of the counters here. Here we have a setup for Russians and for Poles, and here we have some reinforcements. There is not a big of them, about 20 counters in total for all sides. Oh, here we have what kind of units we're gonna have in this game. Here we have another scenario. and the setup and reinforcements. And here we have another scenario, and with different versions of this scenario with different units being used. And here we have a last scenario, so totally we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 scenarios. None of these has a lot of units. Most of them contains only Russian and Polish units, but there is one scenario where Polish side is also able to use some American and British, so let's call it NATO combat group. And on the Polish side we have mostly light infantry units with some support units like anti-tank, anti-air, artillery and so on. While on the Russian side we have mostly regular forces with mechanized units, armored units, special forces units, combat engineers, recon, artillery and so on, along with some air units, like here we have some fighters and combat helicopters. Oh, in this scenario we have also Polish fighters as well. But Russians mostly have an advantage when it comes to the number of the units. Finally, we have a units tables, because in this game you are using a units table to mark the losses. So, for example, we have here a Polish light infantry battalion that contains 4 companies, each of 3 sections of light infantry, along with engineers, anti-air, anti-tank, snipers, and HQ. So each of these units are pretty weak, as you can see. They haven't much of the strength, but their goal is not to defeat Russians per se, but rather to slow down Russian advance. And these units are armed with anti-air rockets, anti-tank, and drones. Here we have regular forces. Now these are definitely stronger. We have Polish mechanized brigade and Russian Soviet. Sorry, I said Soviet because of well, you know. But these are Russians, of course, not Soviets. And as you can see, each brigade has 2 or 3 different ways of equipment. For example, a Russian brigade can be equipped with BMP-2 and T-73, or BMP-3 and T-90. This is a player's choice with what kind of equipment they want to use, but the better equipment they use, the more victory points they have to gain. Also, each vehicle has its firepower. For example, this PT-91 Polish tank has firepower 6 on the 1 hex, firepower 5 on the 2 hexes, firepower 3 on the 3 hexes, and firepower 2 on the 4 hexes, and its armor is 6. So this comes to the other units, and here we have Russian Marines Brigade and some NATO units, along with some air units. These are Russians, I think. And here we have NATO air units, NATO battle combat group with American and British units. As for these tables, I would it is recognized to copy them and use pencil to mark losses, but personally I use something else. I tend to laminate my tables. Here are tables for the main core game, and I use whiteboard marker to mark the losses, and then I use a tissue to wipe, and it's as good as new to be used again. Okay, let's take a look inside more. Here we have a rulebook. Like I said before, I have a Polish rulebook, of course, and this is a pretty complex game. I guess it's quite easy to predict, because when a game touches such scale as a company or platoon, it's always complexed. It has about 20 pages of rules and 1 2, 3, 4 pages of tables for different things like combat, losses, fire combat, mines, attacks of the combat helicopters, air landings, combat, fighters combat, artillery fire, bombers attack, anti-air, artillery, terrain table, recon units attacks, anti-air artillery against bombers, anti-air artillery against air transport. So there is a lot of rules here. I think I'll make a video about this system later with one sample gameplay of this game, so you'll be able to see how it works. I guess it will be easier to check. Next we have counters. I think I will start with the counters now. Here we have fire combat counters. These are used to mark ammo spent during the fire combat by the armored units. Here we have drones, and here we have a counter sheet with units. Some people tend to say that they prefer counters with the graphics than the ones with native symbols. When it comes to me, I prefer the native symbols, but also only for the modern games, for the modern conflicts. When it comes to the 19th century, 18th century and before, I prefer when I have nice graphics of the soldiers, cavalry and artillery here, and commanders. But when it comes to the modern times, I prefer such graphics because, well, they look better and make the game looking more like, well, some real stuff map. What else? Here we have fortifications counters, and here we have maps, or some say boards. There is a first board, which is, like you may see, pretty small. Here, and next we have one of the two bigger boards. These, by bigger, I don't mean they are big at all. As you can see, they are not very big if you compare them with the normal big boards in the war games. I like the terrain because, as you can see, terrain is raw. There is a lot of marshes, a lot of lakes and ponds, some hills here, streams and rivers and woods everywhere, which makes the terrain quite hard to maneuver. I think this shows quite well an example of the Polish Mazurian lakes that are part of the northeastern Poland. And this is a perfect territory for the light infantry to be used, because it's not easy to maneuver with the heavy forces in such terrain. Finally, we have a tiered map, which is as big as the one I showed you a moment ago. And this has a quite different different graphic, because it looks more like a winter terrain. And this is a more clear map. There is not much lakes, woods, some marshes here, of course, but not much of them comparing with the previous map. We have one bigger city here, along with the airport. So definitely this map will be easier for the Russians to maneuver. So that's all when it comes to this game. I think this can be quite an interesting one, because it is focused mostly on the smaller boards and smaller scenarios. Where did I put? Oh yes, here. Each scenario takes 1 day. One day is about, where is the smallest board? Yes, it's here. One day takes 12 turns, so these are not going to be very long scenarios, and a limited number of units make them small as well. So I guess it will be easy thing to learn such a system if you like to. So I think that would be all when it comes to this material. I plan to record one of my gameplays later when I get used with this game, so I think it will be easy to show you how this system works. That will be all for today. Thank you for watching.